November has been a very interesting month in the life simulation gaming community, namely the emergence of a new life simulation game said to release in the near future, being Krafton's Inzoi. There has been a lot of buzz around that particular life simulation game, namely due to the fact that there is a collection of huge life sim influencers leading the charge in that discussion. And as you may have noticed, there is a ton of additional hype surrounding the Sims 4's For Rent expansion pack. And as you can tell by the title of this video here, I'm switching gears to discuss Life by You a little more because, well, I feel committed to it since starting out this YouTube channel. And I've been doing monthly summaries on Life by You since September, and I would feel like I would have missed a month if I didn't do this video. Now for those of you just finding this video and getting to know my channel, my name is Michael and I want to welcome you to Sovereign Gaming and Life Sims, the YouTube channel where I build worlds, plots, and share my thoughts on video games in the life simulation gaming space. Since I have been keeping up with Life by You by providing monthly updates, at the very least, I'm happy to be back discussing what we know from November. And I have to be honest, today I'll mostly be talking about the quest editor that was shown a few weeks back, since that was the most in-depth new piece of gameplay that was shown to us in November. Now for the first video in November, I have technically covered it in the October recap since it came out on one of the last days of October, and it was short enough for me to cover it. So feel free to check out my October recap if you really want to hear me speak on the Boutique Hotel tour. In fact, I'll save you some time right now. Essentially, I just didn't feel like we learned anything new about the Boutique Hotel, but it was nice to see it in action. Seeing the Boutique Hotel in action just led me to having more questions about how jobs and careers work. That was really it for my thoughts on the Boutique Hotel tour, so let's move on now to discuss what we learned about the quest editor. And like I have done in previous videos, we'll watch it a little bit and then I'll share some of my thoughts.
Hi everyone, it's Community Manager Rocio here, and today I want to talk to you about quests. You might have seen them off to the left while we're doing other videos. Today we're specifically talking about editing and adding quests, so this is what it would look like in-game. Good luck on your fitness journey, Tracy. Without further ado, let's dive right in. We're back in the editor tools here, and let's go ahead and get started. So here we go ahead and start by clicking on the quest button. Now that we're here, you can see the general gist of an existing quest. This is basic work, but we're going to make a new quest as an example. By clicking the green plus icon in the upper left-hand corner, I now have a new quest. Here you can see what a blank quest looks like. And for the sake of example, I'm just going to call this Make a Quest. That's going to be our quest. I'm going to go ahead and type that in the left-hand section here as well. Next, we're going to go ahead and add a tag to this quest. So this is a way that we can reference it later. If you see here the Meet Someone New quest, the tag is Meet Someone New. So I'm going to go ahead and title this tag just Make a Quest. Now we decide if we want to make this a timed quest or not. So if you make it a timed quest, basically you're adding a time limit to this quest. For example, let's just say we're adding 2 hours, so 120 minutes. And you can, of course, just uncheck it entirely and have the quest never expire. And this checkbox here for all steps optional, we usually handle this at an individual level for each of the steps, so I'll show you how we do that when we get to the steps section. Next, let me tell you about editing the rewards of a quest. So here you can see on the right-hand side all of the options for rewards. We have some basic ones like currency and experience, which you might be familiar with. So let's just go ahead and add some of that. There's job promotion, basically will you be promoted to the next level of that job, as well as adding and removing traits. Clicking add trait here as an example, let's say I want this quest to make someone flirtatious upon completing it. I can go ahead and do that. You can also have it remove traits. So for example, if you'd like to remove a temporary trait or a background trait, something like that, that's totally possible. Under that, you'll see grant skill experience, and basically here you can pick a skill, and depending on the quest, you can have it contribute to that skill when you finish it. So let's pretend we're adding 20 experience to academics upon completing this. And if I change my mind, it's very easy to just click the minus button, remove that, and pick something else. Let's go ahead and go with creativity. Mostly because I'm being so creative in whatever this quest is turning out to be. Now you can actually add items to the rewards, and you can pick multiple items. So let's just pick some of the ones at the top of this list, archaeology. So let's say I didn't want this to be the only item in the reward pool. I'm going to make that 50% and add a second item, a teapot, and make that one 50% as well. So basically what this is saying is you're earning one item reward from this quest, and you have a 50% chance for either item. You can increase the number of item rewards for the quest, as well as add more items to the item pool if you'd like it to be a little bit more random. So now let's go down to the bottom where it says change relationship with quest giver. One thing we're actually working on right now is adding some quests that can be given to you by other humans within the town. So for example, you complete a quest for someone and then it increases your chemistry, your friendliness, your romantic relationship with them. And we'll go more in depth into this as well as some of our conversation systems with one of our game designers in a future video. Moving on to this player-only checkbox, this is used so that only you, the player, can complete the quest. A random NPC that you're not controlling won't do it without.
Alright, out of all of the life simulation games being developed right now, in my opinion, Life by You is offering the most robust and detailed gameplay. I'm just not seeing any other future life simulation games offering the complexity and depth in the gameplay features that Life by You is offering, and a lot of that has to do with these editor tools, quite literally allowing players to design their own game within a game how they see fit. I mean, what other future life sim game will allow you to create your own careers, quests, and more right in the core of the game? This video is very similar to the traits video that was released a couple of months back, and I just want to compare it again as it looks like both of the editor tools appear very easy to use. Sure, you have to wrap your head around some of the programming language, but Rocio walks us through in both videos like how to navigate both of the tools. And in my opinion, I feel like the editor tools that come along with Life by You have an intuitive UI design that can be competently used by anyone with even zero modding experience. And yes, I am including myself in that group as well. In my opinion, everything is very straightforward when it comes to setting up a quest and its rewards, and I'm very impressed with it. I can see the community getting very creative with offering custom quests. For example, I can see world builders customizing their own Welcome to My World quest, or I can see modders setting up a quest that could help get rid of a difficult trait, such as like a therapy quest to get rid of a troubled childhood trait, or to help a Life by You character get rid of a mourning trait of some kind that's kind of hard to shake. I think that the creativity here is pretty endless, and that these quests feel like the next proper evolution of the opportunities gameplay feature that we had in The Sims 3. Personally, I didn't mind opportunities depending on whether or not I felt like playing them in The Sims 3, and this really feels like the next evolution to that. There were also a couple of things that I thought were interesting that Rocio mentioned as well. The first being that there's a checkbox to tick if you want the quest to be a player-only quest, meaning that only the player can complete the quest and that the NPC you aren't controlling won't do it without you. I tried to quote Rocio there verbatim, but to me, this kind of suggests that townies and NPCs can be given and complete quests autonomously, which is actually very impressive if that is the case. Again, I'm just kind of making an assumption here, so please take that with a grain of salt. The other thing that Rocio mentioned in this part was that they were going to do a video expanding more upon increasing relationships by completing quests and how this impacts conversations in a future video. I only wanted to touch upon this because there's honestly still a lot of ground to cover in the lead up to Life by You's early access release on March 4th. But let's move on and continue watching.
Next on this screen, you'll see on start, on completed, and on failed. We're actually going to start with on failed first. So let's just say you did not complete this quest in time. This is something that might pop up if you're late to your job or you're just not making it to an event. So here you can add a couple of things, including interactions, you can add items, all kinds of stuff. We're going to use something simple here. Let's add a trait when you fail this. And all you have to do to add a trait is click on this and drag it over. Here you see we have a couple options for a recipient for this trait, but let's say it's the person who failed this quest. I'm going to make them embarrassed. So I'm going to search for embarrassed and add it as the trait. I'm going to go ahead and leave the origin at the default because I don't want to do anything special here, but I also wanted to show off the rest of this page. Chris, who you might remember from our art video, has recently done an overhaul on this page, so hopefully this looks spiffy and nice for when modders get their hands on it. So now we've added something for on failure. Let's add something for on start. So like I mentioned, there are a ton of different options here. Let's pretend that this quest adds an item to your inventory when you start it. Let's say that I want this quest to brighten your day with a flower when you start it. I'm going to add a poppy to your inventory when you start this quest, and the caption will just be, "Hope this helps." And I think that's more than enough for onStart, so let's go to onCompleted. Uncompleted has all of the same commands that the previous two have, but we're already giving a bunch of rewards, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that one blank.
Just to share an idea out loud here, theoretically, I could go as far as to create a quest that gives a Life by You human character a key that unlocks a door that can't be opened. I'm sure you're wondering, how can the door in this example be locked for other Life by You human characters, and how do you create a key? Well, if you recall, the Life by You team walked us through adding properties to objects, so I'm thinking that you could add a property to a door to not allow a Life by human character to really open it, so you can block it off from the general public. And that you could also add a behavior to allow the Life by You human characters to unlock it if they use a specific key object on it that they have in their inventory. Obviously, I would have to do a lot more exploring and actually play the game to see if this is possible myself. But with these functions in mind, I have to wonder if it is possible to actually create dungeon maps in Life by You, since we can add behaviors and functions to objects. And combining that with a quest, it could lead to an actual dungeon that you can explore and have to solve puzzles for and all that. Perhaps I've lost my mind in thinking that with that idea, so feel free to comment below if you don't think that's the case. I just kind of wanted to share an idea out loud with you guys now that we're watching this video here. And like I mentioned before, I feel like the quest editor is very intuitive to use so far, so I actually think that it could be possible to build in such a way. But let's continue watching.
Blank. Next up is steps for our quest. So I'm going to just add a bunch of steps to start with, and we'll work from there. So I'm going to just put placeholder here. Again, this is an example quest. So I'm just going to say start making quest, and the goal will be to travel to home. You can go here and filter through different commands and pick a lot that makes sense for your quest. You can also time these individual steps. So let's say I wanted to time this to 20 minutes, get home fast. And you can also check each one individually for optional or not optional. Similarly, you can do this with NPC only versus player only. You can also have these unlocked by previous steps, and you can add things to on completed and on failed of these individual steps. So that's just step one. Let's say we continue doing this for each of our 5 steps that I've added. For the second one, it'll just be step 2. And let's go ahead and make this one leaving the lot because we're done being home now. Moving on to the next step, I'm just going to title this one step 3, similar to the last one. And here we can go ahead and let's say I want them to reach a certain skill level. So you can go ahead and pick a skill, I'll say academic since we didn't use it earlier, and then input the required level. And next up will be step 4 to making a quest. I'm not very creative with my placeholder names. And we're going to go ahead and say this one's going to be performing a specific interaction. So here you would just type in the interaction you'd like and any specific tags if you want a broader interaction like athletic. And for our final step, last but not least, let's just say finish the quest. And looking at my options here, I'm going to say reach a total amount of money and just make it a nice even 10,000. And that's pretty much it for these steps. So as you can see, here we have 5 steps. Once you've completed these 5 steps, you get the rewards for the quest. But let's say you want to remove quest steps, you can easily just minus them out. You can also change their order using these little arrows. Before we go, I wanted to walk you through a couple of examples, so I started you here on the yoga class event. You can see the rough steps to a yoga class. Go to the Lotus Gym, change into your workout clothing, warm up, practice your yoga poses, and finish out with a meditation. So this is an example of a quest you might get multiple times because, you're going to the gym repeatedly. Now let me show you an example of a quest that you might have already seen in some of our previous videos. And if not, you might remember it from earlier in this video, but hopefully now that you know what all of these fields do, you might understand it a little bit better. So this is just one of our introductory quests. It's basically, you first started the game, go ahead and connect with your neighbors, introduce yourself to someone new. Here we have the goal to be a specific action, and that action is introduce. And once you've completed that step, you've completed this quest. So on completion, you can see that it gives you a new quest. It's Give Quest Laptop Tutorial. So that was on completed, but under rewards, you do receive experience. And that's in addition to the fact that you got to meet someone new, which is kind of its own reward. And as you might be able to see from the side over here, quests work in all kinds of ways. They work for relationships, they work for skills, they work at introducing you to aspects of the world. So we're really excited to show you more of these quests in the future. And that's it for adding and editing quests. Thank you so much for joining us. Please feel free to leave all of your comments and questions below, and have a great weekend.
What I was most impressed by this part of the video is the on complete and on failed consequences being available to occur during a step of a quest. Although I wish we could have seen Rocio assign a failure or an on complete consequence, I'm glad and honestly surprised that this kind of a feature is there for us players to actually play with, even when just designing the steps. That's pretty detailed. And that's what I mean by there being a level of depth to this game that other life simulation games aren't even attempting, because again, theoretically, from what I understand about Life by You, maybe you could give a different key as a reward for completing a certain step, or perhaps if you failed a certain step, you'd be given the wrong key or something of that kind of sort. If I'm going to be using my key example from before. One other thing that I would like more details on are the differences between the NPC and player-only toggle boxes that we see in each of these steps. I know I mentioned it earlier, but I just kind of wanted to share that, for example, can NPCs complete quests autonomously or up to a certain point if the quest allows it? That's something that I'm kind of curious about. Maybe an NPC can complete certain steps and then there's another step that has to be player controlled. That's pretty intense, that's pretty advanced if those NPCs and townies can complete these quests autonomously. I mean, that's some real complicated programming right there. But I also kind of wish that Rocio created a real quest that she would try out in her Life by You save game. Now, one thing that I have noticed is that when we are shown these editor features, that we aren't always shown how it actually shows up in the game. And I would like to see that, since we didn't see it for the traits video either. And I think that we're kind of at that point where we just need to see how, designing something in the editor tool will actually translate into the game. I just think that we need those two. Obviously there's going to be a loading screen, but I would really like to see that live and see what happens with that. And I would also like to see if there's something that you screwed up on in the editor game, in one of the editor tools. For example, if you created a property that didn't make sense in a quest, how that error would translate into the game itself. I hope I made some sense there. Okay, so yeah, that's something that I would really like to see is, again, whatever you create in editors and how it translates into the actual game. I think that it's pretty important for players to kind of see that, and it would also be, again, I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but I would really like to see what happens if you screwed up something in the editor mode and then had to play the game and didn't find out until you're actually playing the game, and how that would actually work. So yeah. Now that the video's done, let's actually move on to the hiking video. And for the hiking video that was released just in that last week of November there, I'm just going to silence the video and talk over it since I really didn't feel like I needed to pause and reflect on what was going on. Okay, I kind of found it a little funny when it came to the timing of the hiking video being released, because like this was one of the few times that Life by You has really tried to wow us with the graphics and with the way that things are developing and looking beautiful in the world. And so like they tried to capture footage that shows off the beauty of Life by You, and then when they did that, like inZOI pretty much dropped and like completely seduced the life simulation gaming fan base with their graphics and stuff. So it was kind of like it was sort of funny that this dropped and then those other videos were dropped. It's pretty hilarious if you ask me in terms of like bad timing. Aside from that, like since like this video is self-admittedly a fluffier video, I don't have a whole lot of feedback to give on this video that was put out a few weeks ago. One observation that I will share with you is that at the beginning of the video there was a construction site, and I'm just sitting here questioning whether or not that construction site is interactive or if it's just purely decorative. I assume it would be decorative, but like it just seems interesting to me that for a project that is on the scale of Life by You being so huge, that construction objects were making the cut, even if they are just decorative, because it seems like very much like fluff objects, if I am making sense there. Like I would have expected to see construction themed objects to be in the game as sometime after the full game has been released, but that's just me. Like it just feels like they're an elective or a clutter set if you ask me, but I'm not complaining, I'm just observing and, pleasantly surprised. The biggest takeaway really this month was indeed the video on the Quest editor. Like I mentioned earlier, the Quest editor video helps us to understand the Traits editor video and vice versa, so I'm honestly due for a rewatch of those videos anyways. At this point, I also just want to observe that there are a lot of promises from the Paradox Life by You team, with them going in depth in future videos for certain features. One day I will note what those were and just kind of list them out, but I just wanted to bring this up because when looking ahead and taking holidays into account, it seems like Life by You has about like 12 more videos to release before the early access version goes live on March 4th, assuming that they keep their pace of publishing one video every Friday. I'm not gonna lie, I am getting a little worried about Life by You, not because there's other competition, but because the timeline is right around the corner and we have yet to learn about jobs or what editor tools will end up being accessible by players. And if I'm going to be completely honest, like the animations are also a little worrying as well. I don't mean to sow any kind of seeds of doubt, as I clearly have no professional experience on how to develop a game from start to finish, but personally, I'm just not seeing a clear-cut quality jump from the graphics and animations up until now. And I've always been very gentle on the graphics and animations feedback. So yeah, I'm just kind of not seeing where that clear-cut quality jump has happened or whether animations have continued to expand. And really, like this might actually be more of a call out for an updated artistic direction / animation video like what they put out in summer. But animations, character designs, and spatial programming are what make video games enjoyable, or some of the elements anyways. And just to like get ahead of some questions, no, I would have said this at this point without inZOI or Paralives being on the market. I can see past pretty graphics, but both inZOI and Paralives do have pretty smooth animations, and I found the lack of guardrail jumping disturbing, if I may slyly misuse that Star Wars quote and make it my own. And since I am publishing this video on the heels of the cooking Life by You video and blog being released, I actually won't cover that in this video since I consider it to be December content, and to be completely honest, I'm a little undecided at this time whether I wanted to a deep dive video on the cooking features or not. I'll watch and read the blog over again and just kind of decide from there. But at this time, I actually want to invite you to share your thoughts. Did you as well find the lack of guardrail jumping disturbing? Do you think that the editors are adding a layer of gameplay depth that other competitors aren't? And do you think it will pay off for Life by You? Or maybe there was something that I missed in these November Life by You videos that you would like to share. Comment below with your thoughts. And until next time, I just want to thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more videos like this one, then feel free to like this video and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you again, and I hope you have yourself a wonderful day.